right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast. Number one podcast in the world for growing your insurance business. 115, Christian Brindle, Glenn Shelton. And it's another day. Another day. Good morning, good sir.
Good morning.
Main topic today. I know we have a few things to kick around before we get to it.
Yes.
But I promise we're going to spend a lot of time on it. Some information that's kind of come out in the last week that is not really new information. It had come out probably 7 to 8 months ago was the first I was hearing of it. And I hesitated bringing it up on the show at all. But I decided that we were probably in the clear to do so because I had not remembered this, but CMS had put out a public statement, an article of sorts on their website all the way back in December about this. And so I will not mention any specific carriers, anything like that, but I will talk about CMS's overall announcement, which will impact all carriers when it comes to DSNP plans. And it just kind of blows my mind. I just kind of thought everybody knew about this. And then this information starts coming out this week with some particular carriers and everyone's losing their minds and going apeshit. They're like, new information, not new information. Where, you know, so I truthfully didn't really think that it was something that needed to be brought up on the podcast. I thought it was kind of like old news.
Right.
But for 99% of the agent community, it seems like it's not new at all to them. It's like brand new information.
Yeah. We could probably go back 5 years and pull like stuff that came out 5 years ago and be like, this passed. Did you guys know? And there would be people like, what?
Wait. But the thing is about this one that's kind of unique to that is it won't take effect until plan year January 1st of 2026, right? So it's something that's coming, but it's not by any means new information or groundbreaking information. It's just kind of wild to me how many people that work in this space, and I don't mean this as a shot, it's just genuinely interesting how many people work in this space that like it's their livelihood and they just don't pay attention to anything.
Do you think some of that's because of the seasonality of Medicare, that the vast majority of applications in business gets written just this one time a year? So is it just there's a lot of people that kind of unplug the rest of the, the other 6-7 months that they don't have to pay attention at all? Because I see it all the time too, all the time.
Yeah, I think it very well could be partially that. I think people typically get their updates from AHIP and carrier certs every year. And anything else going on, unless it's like blown up in a Facebook group, which I'm sure this was, even when the information first kind of came out.
I'm sure it was. Yeah.
So, but I think there's a lot of agents that, probably, they're just kind of, their heads are up in the clouds and everything like that if it's not AEP. And I've always said that's no way to run your business. No way to run your business. You don't have a real business at that point. You have like a seasonal job. You're like Santa Claus in the mall. You're very busy for about 30 days. If you're Santa Claus in the mall.
There's Medicare agents in Walmart and Santa Clauses in the mall.
Same
things
thing.
You can expect every year.
But different. Same, but different. So yeah, we're gonna dive into that. I'm gonna jump into the actual CMS article. We'll kind of go through it together and talk about what it means, what you need to know, and kind of go from there. Before we get into that, though, is there anything you wanted to discuss early on?
Honestly, I'm still recovering from yesterday's pod, guys. If you didn't see episode 114 yesterday, going through why Medigap premiums are on the rise, and a lot of you will complain about it. I haven't seen a whole lot of people trying to figure out what's actually going on. Andrew Saul came on the pod yesterday with receipts. It was quite eye-opening.
So for me, right, like the actual numbers of it, I wouldn't say I knew off the top of my head, but I knew roughly.
Yeah.
And I could probably have given you prior to that show a far simplified version of the
Yeah.
explanation.
Right.
But he did a tremendous job, as he always does, going into the detail of it and kind of showing the numbers behind it. What did you walk away from that show yesterday feeling like on that topic?
Well, earlier this year, we talked about the funeral of Medicare supplement, and I always thought it was kind of further off. I mean, I don't know. We could probably go pull some of the transcripts and see what I said. I think I said at least 5 years, but man, oh man, those numbers were probably triple what I would have guessed, honestly, as far as
Yeah,
what the loss ratios look like. Because that's the thing. I had a similar viewpoint. I mean, you're probably even more in the know than me on this stuff. But I understood mechanically that a lot of these plans are losing money strategically, just like the
right.
big call centers, right? The big call centers will spend $900 to acquire a client. You know, nobody's getting paid $900 or more. So they're losing money, right? They're losing
Yeah,
money on this acquisition, and the insurance carriers are playing the same game. We
yeah,
lose money now, we'll make money later, we'll grow the company, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the loss ratios are scary because it makes it feel a lot less stable, I guess, when you see the numbers are that big. It's like how, like 600%, 800% loss ratios after 15, 20 years. Like, what's the plan, you guys?
yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
how do you overcome? Like, I get playing a short-term loss game. Like, that makes all the sense in the world. We play that sometimes internally at ESI. We'll play short-term loss games all the time for future game. But
sure.
oof, I mean,
But
those numbers were crazy.
that's tremendous. I feel like some of the shorter term losses, right? The like 90 to 100 to 125% loss ratios, those numbers didn't shock me because I have access to CSG actuarial, and so do all of you, right? So like that's numbers are at your fingertips when you look at the market data, market analytics. My CSG actuarial was not working for yesterday's podcast, ironically enough, but um, but yeah, like those long-term numbers are things that were new information to me, that
Yeah,
800% stuff. I think
yeah,
an oversimplified explanation of it to me, because he wasn't saying all carriers, he was pointing out a couple select carriers without naming them. And, you know, the oversimplified version of it is kind of that same overall old philosophy of a carrier rolling out a block of business. They undercut everybody on the rates, knowing they can't afford it long term. They ride that for 3 to 5 years. They grandfather it away. They jack everybody's rates up to kingdom come, right? And then they roll out a new subsidiary company in the market,
right,
rinse and repeat.
right.
There's a there.
Mutual bone. There's a lot. Sorry. I'm just saying there's a lot of companies out there that operate this way. There's a
Yes.
lot of insurance carriers that operate this way. And I was very familiar with that style of operations. Here's a question I had for Andrew that we didn't get to yesterday that I think we can quickly discuss here before we get to the main topic. 10 years ago, my understanding is that premiums would do this sometimes. We would see premiums go up with Medigap carriers. My understanding, though, and again, you'll have a better insight on this than I have, but my understanding is it didn't increase nearly as rapidly as what we see now. Like it's night and day difference. Am I wrong on that?
I think you're seeing a lot more instances of it increasing rapidly with a lot more percentage of companies. But you still had situations with the rapid increases. So like the carrier that I will not say, that is probably the most notorious for doing that,
He who
like
must not be named.
the cow company. Um,
Uh-oh.
they
Tillamook?
did, I
Tillamook
want to
cheese?
say in 2010, before either of us probably were even in the business, they did a guaranteed issue plan N temporarily.
Okay.
And then they grandfathered it away. Couldn't tell you exactly how long they did it for, maybe a year. And I knew a lot of agents that would just, put hundreds of their clients that couldn't move into this plan N. Then they grandfathered the block away. right? The thing about CSG actuarial is it only shows you open blocks. That's one thing that Andrew said yesterday. It doesn't show you closed blocks, even if it's the same company, just different subsidiary of the company, a different block. And so anybody that's been around long enough to remember that happening, when I came into the business, we were kind of seeing the after effects of that block shooting up. And a lot of the people that were on it were too sick to move anyway. But like, so you saw like isolated events of it, or you saw like little tiny carriers that would, do things, on guaranteed issue. They'd pay very high percentage rate of commission on guaranteed issue, where most carriers don't in non-birthday rule states. Or they'd undercut the market, and then they just wouldn't be around anymore. Like, there's a laundry list of those types of carriers that just don't do med subs today. And so you saw it happen with those too, but you didn't see it as much, in my opinion, with the bigger name carriers outside of the cow company.
Oh man. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So, and that was something I hadn't really thought a lot about until that conversation yesterday. And I'm like, man, it's changed a lot when I started to really think about how things used to be. And it's like, and so if this is the change we've seen already, what does the next 10 years look like?
Right.
That's the scary part.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, and Andrew said on our show before, and I've heard other people say it too, that the future of MedSup is these high deductible plans, which I understand the argument for them, and I understand there's a place for them. I'm a huge fan of Physicians' Innovative Plan G. I think that's, to me, an exception in markets where it's got a competitive rate, that kind of thing. But overall, like a regular high deductible Plan G or Plan F or something like that, I've never really been a huge fan. Even if you could make the argument that the coverage is very strong, numbers wise, premium wise, blah blah blah, it's a far more complicated piece of coverage for the client to understand. And just because of that alone, I think it's a very much an uphill battle, especially if you're selling against a Medicare Advantage plan. You know what I mean? That's zero.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
a comment.
Let me just wrap this up.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
If that is the future of MedSup, I don't feel great for MedSup. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was my takeaway, from yesterday's podcast. Was I had a sick feeling in my stomach when I was thinking about MedSup and where things, it just felt a lot less stable than what I realized. Now, that being said, I think there's still going to be a place for Medicare Supplement. Just like I've said before, I don't think it's going to completely go away, but it was just wild to see some of these numbers. Again, so I've got a comment here from Kevin. He says, we always talk about the cost of inflation without addressing the cost of care increases. Sure. Guys, Freebie Fridays happening every Friday. Drop a comment here on the stream in 7-Figure Medicare Agent Facebook group, and you can get entered into our giveaway that we're doing every single week. We've given away almost $100,000 of services, leads, training since the start of this year alone. So do not miss out. Comment below. Freebie Friday every Friday. Great comment, Kevin. I think that's a great point. I mean, that's the problem. That's the core of the problem, right? Is that essentially the cost of care is is escalating too fast. Right. Nothing can keep up with it.
Right. People get mad at the carriers or the insurance companies, but they don't even take for a second to address that the claims they're paying out cost them more than they ever did before. Domino effect.
What did the insurance company do here?
Right. What are they supposed to do? Like, their cost to cover you goes up, so your cost for the insurance goes up. Like it's basic economics in a sense, right? Like, and so, yeah.
By the way, can I just say I'm getting some major Tiger Woods vibes from you today. I keep looking at you and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's got his Sunday Reds on, and he's ready to go finish with 18 holes today. This is fantastic.
I love my wife. I was watching an old South Park the other day with Tiger Woods,
Yeah.
and they kept like showing the press conferences of him apologizing, and then his wife would come out of like the background and start hitting him with a club. She's like, how dare you cheat on me? And it turns out Cartman and the other kids are playing a video game of golf,
Yeah.
and the whole video game is him and his wife fighting with golf
I
clubs,
remember this.
like
Yes,
Mortal
I remember
Kombat.
this. Oh my gosh. Tiger Woods, everybody. Do you want to get into today's sponsor of episode 115? I want to make sure we have plenty of time left for our main topic today. Who is our sponsor today, Mr. Brindle?
Yes, I'd love to. Guys, today's sponsor is the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Summit. Wanted to talk to you guys about the recording. There's plenty of you that will listen to this that will not be able to make the event for whatever reason. If you didn't buy a ticket at all, you'll still be able to get your hands on the information if you so chose to. So every year at the summit, we don't live stream the event. Just adds a level of complication that we've never really wanted to do. But what we do is we always have a professional camera crew there filming the entire thing. If you have a ticket, you automatically get the recording sent to you within usually about 30 days after the event, give or take. And so there's no need to buy it again. But if you're not going at all, don't have a ticket at all, you can buy the recording for a very affordable price. Right now, I believe it's only $197 one time. Post-event, if you buy the recording, it will be going up to $297. So if you pre-order it now, you will be able to get it at a discounted price and lock that in and secure it. So we highly recommend that. It will be the event of the year, right? So
Totally.
Some of you prioritized other events earlier this year and you're disappointed. I get it. If you chose those events over this event, you made a mistake, but you can still do something about it. You can pre-order the recording. The event's sold out. You might be able to find somebody last second if you want to go that's reselling a ticket last second. They can't go. There's a couple of those out there. But outside of that, the only way to get the content at this point is to either try to sneak in. Glenn will physically remove you if you do that. Or pre-order the recording.
We'll have paid security. Jake, you're a paid security. You already know that. You're watching this right now, Jake.
Put down the camera, Jake, and get them out.
Put down the camera, Jake. You're a bouncer right now. Guys, you don't want to miss this.
Yes. This is the only opportunity for the next couple of weeks here to get in on that recording at a discounted price. So highly recommend it. Go to 7figure.com or 7figuremedicareagentsummit.com to order that recording pre-order.
Boom.
All right.
Okay, really fast. 12 speakers?
12 speakers.
12 speakers.
12 speakers. Great swag. I'm actually showcasing early.
Oh, I know.
This year's
so
hat.
Jealous. Yes. Guys, look at that.
New hat.
Look at that hat. If you guys knew how much company time and energy went into that conversation. We call ourselves internally, we're a hat company. Yes. And when you see the hats this year, you're gonna know, wow, these guys know hat. That's what comes. This is the territory that comes with working with bald people. We are hat connoisseurs. We know a good hat when we see one. You don't want to miss this
with hats.
Yes, years of experience. So much hat experience. Crazy. It's crazy.
Our swag bag, I think it will be better this year than ever. You know, we've
for sure
kind of limited it down to less items, but higher quality items. Won't spoil any details more than that. But swag bag is going to be awesome. So if you're going to be there, that's going to be a great event. The stage is bigger and grander than ever. The presentation's going to be better than ever. This is going to be a ballin' event, and of course, the same quality content you've always come to expect from the summit. So, looking forward to it in just under 3 weeks here.
Crazy. I can't believe it's already here. Time flies. Are you more nervous about the summit or the birth of your child? I wanted to ask you this on the pod. What's more nerve-wracking to you right now
The
as
only
you're a few
thing
weeks out?
I'm
A few
nervous
weeks out
about is if the birth came early and happened during the event. That's
during
the only thing I'm
that's
nervous
gonna-
about. I'm not nervous about anything else. If like you could look in a crystal ball and assure me that that wouldn't happen, I'd have no nerves. I'd be carefree.
I think you have to, if that happens, I think the baby gets delivered at the summit. I think that's what has to
On
happen. I
stage.
think on stage, we get a live birth of Christian's namesake, his son. I'm excited for all of it. I think it's going to be a great time. 12 speakers, though. Here's the thing with the content. I'll just reiterate this really fast. By not being there, if you get a copy of the recording, you get a copy of their slideshow and their presentation. This type of information in and of itself is probably worth thousands of dollars. When you look at just the type of people who are coming together and they're sharing information, they want to help everyone level up, just honestly out of the goodness of their hearts, which is crazy half the time because these speakers aren't paid. I think that's important to know as well. We're not paying these speakers. So, they are coming, they're sharing information with their own free will. And it's amazing. Honestly, I know personally, I think I'll go on record saying personally, I've leveled up the company utilizing information we've gotten from the summit, right? I mean, I'm there to learn too. That's how excited I am about the speakers, especially this year. So grab the recording. We'll make sure the link's in the comments below.
I love it. I love it. Okay, let's shift gears into the main topic. So, if you didn't catch the beginning of the show, sorry, I had a stroke there for a second. No,
senior moment.
Yeah, senior moment.
If you didn't reset.
If you didn't catch the beginning of the show, there were some changes that have kind of started to be communicated, right, from carriers this week, in the last couple of weeks, that agents are really starting to kind of lose their minds over. And my first reaction was, I was like, why are you losing your mind? This is not new information. So before I kind of decided if we could talk about it or not, I determined that we could, because as long as we didn't mention any carriers by name, because this is public information, right? CMS had put this out on their own accord, on their own platform, their own website, back in December was the earliest public communication I could find in this. I had been hearing about this as far back as basically a year ago. So again, right, I never thought it was a relevant topic, but apparently it is for many of you, because lots of you just, I don't know, you just haven't been paying attention to what's been going on. So I'm going to share my screen and we will jump into this article.
Let's go.
Or announcement, whatever you want to call it, from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services on CMS.gov. Okay, so this was put out December 16th of 2024. Can you see my screen, sir?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay, so this is what it has to do with. Medicare Advantage Value-Based Insurance Design, VBID model, to end after calendar year 2025. So this will take effect for any plans starting January 1st, 2026. Okay. Excess costs associated with the model unable to be addressed by policy changes. So I'm not going to read this all, especially because it's been put out by CMS, right? It's a kind of a bit of gobbledygook. But I will.
Great for goblins. If you're if you're a compliance goblin, you'll read every word. Read it twice.
Yes, if you are a goblin, as it seems. Okay, so it starts off by saying CMS is terminating the Medicare Advantage Value-Based Insurance Design VBID model at the end of 2025 due to the model's substantial and unmitigable, I can't speak, costs
Unmitigable.
I can't speak English.
I don't know how to say that.
To the Medicare trust funds. Excess costs to the Medicare trust funds of this magnitude $2.3 billion in calendar year 2021, $2.2
Wow.
billion in calendar year 2022, associated with the VBID model. Based on the prior and forthcoming evaluation reports, respectively, are unprecedented in CMS Innovation Center models. Additional analysis of model performance and policy options demonstrated that these substantial costs were driven in part by increased risk score growth and Part D expenditures, and that no viable policy modifications could address these excess costs. As such, the model must be terminated at the end of 2025 to meet the CMS Innovation Center's statutory requirements. So basically, what does this mean, right? Again, there's a lot of gobbledygook. So what the VBID model is it's a model that includes benefits to a certain type of benefit on a Medicare Advantage plan, often seen in DSNP plans mostly, right? So an example to this would be a grocery card, right?
Okay.
A grocery card is like falls into this VBID category.
What about did I see dental benefits are also a part of this too?
You know, we don't have I don't have all the details in terms of all the specific benefits. It will probably come out more as we go. I haven't seen anything that specifically mentioned dental. It
May have
might
been like
be
a comment I was reading where someone was asking or someone was assuming it included dental, but that would be really interesting if some of these benefits started to get removed from these plans, like dental.
my understanding was it had more to do with, and you see some plans do this now, right? There's some plans that are not chronic SMP plans where you have there's a health questionnaire to determine eligibility. There are some plans now that you can enroll into, very few, but they might have like a grocery card of some kind. But you can be on the plan, but to use the grocery card benefit, you have to have a qualifying chronic condition. And so,
So is this the end of grocery cards?
no, I don't. It's not the end, but
Less
only a
plans will have them.
segment. Well, no, I'm not even. I don't even know if that's the case. But not everyone will be able to use it. So what I'm saying is the plan might have that benefit, but the only people that can utilize the benefit are people that prove they have a chronic condition and are
Gotcha.
eligible to use it, if that makes sense.
And before anyone could use it.
On a DSNP plan, for example, right? A DSNP
Yeah.
plan might have a grocery card. And if it did have a grocery card, anybody on the plan could use it. The only criteria for eligibility was being dual eligible, Medicare and Medicaid.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the big change. Again, this doesn't really tell us every exact benefit that's going to classify. But here's some examples, right? Transportation to medical appointments, healthy and food assistance, so grocery card, things like that. So what I would expect, I haven't seen anything. I could be wrong. I haven't. We don't know everything yet for 2026, so I'm not going to pretend like I know. But I haven't seen anything to make me think that that dental, vision, hearing, or things like that will be impacted. But I do think some of these extra, overinflated benefits that, like the Joe Namath commercials and the celebrity commercials
Right.
really sold on their
yeah.
services on, right? Like get grocery cards, to get transportation to doctor's appointments, right? Like they would really push those.
Don't some have like money cards where they literally get like to pay towards utilities and stuff like that?
Well, that's also the grocery card. So a lot of
Oh,
times they can use it for a grocery
multiple ways.
benefit, or they could use it for utilities and things like that. So anything that falls into that kind of additional model will probably still be on the plan, but the person will have to prove chronic medical conditions in order to get access to that coverage. So it's a much higher barrier to entry for people to have those benefits on their DSNP plans. So that is This episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast is brought to you by the Seven Figure Medicare Agent Summit. Guys, it is a fact that getting around other people that are chasing the same ambitions and destinations in their business as you is a great thing, and it can propel your business years ahead than not getting around people and networking and going to live events. The Seven Figure Medicare Agent Summit is the premier event. Every year we hear year after year after year that it is the event that has the best content. So many events nowadays, they do a lot of pitching from the stage. They're really just there to sell you things. And if nothing more than that, they're just a bunch of vendors put together and they're just nothing but networking. There's no content. The summit is the best of both worlds, you guys. The summit puts together great, fantastic speakers from all ends of the industry, and also get you in a room with like-minded individuals from all over the country that are trying to build their business just like you. The summit this year is taking place in Salt Lake City from June 22nd to 24th at the Hilton Hotel. We still have tickets available. We'd love to have you come out for the event. We are over 50% sold out at the time of recording this, but get your ticket now while you can. This event will sell out, and we'd love to see you there in Salt Lake City. A pretty big change, especially for the DSNP market. One thing I said publicly, because I saw somebody post about this in the Facebook group, I kind of decided to chime in a little bit. I said, I'm so happy that I was right all these years not to focus on DSNP business.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, again and again and again, it just turns out that I'm correct when I've said things over the
prophet.
Years.
Marcus Lemonis, move over. There's a new prophet.
Once again, I called it right. I'm Babe Ruth, calling my shot. And we lost half the audience.
And they're gone.
No, but I always said that, right? For a multitude of reasons, I didn't like to prioritize dual business. And there's a lot of people that built their agency on the back of dual business because it was one of those things that, for one, right, it was an opportunity to participate in year-round enrollments, right? So they're like, yeah, year-round AEP, blah, 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 basically is kind of what their thought process was. But my argument was always, these plans, first off, the clientele on average, not saying there's not exceptions, but the clientele on average, I feel, is just not really a desirable clientele oftentimes. They're overly needy. You get a lot of people that are fairly entitled. I kind of coined the phrase, they'll change for a cookie. I'm the first person that said it. I guarantee it. I've never heard.
We have a trademark pending on they'll move for a cookie. Let me ask you something. Do you think this will actually cause a reduction in marketing these benefits, even though they're technically harder to qualify for? Or do you think the marketing is going to continue to push forward, and it almost creates this whole other problem where a senior might get signed up for a plan, believe that they can get a card or a food card, whatever benefit we're talking about, and then they get told, sorry, you don't actually qualify for that benefit. Well, my agent told me it was on this plan. Well, and the carrier's like, well, it is on this plan, but you just don't qualify for it on this plan. So
I think we've already seen a pretty dramatic reduction in marketing these benefits because CMS has provided more clarity over the years on what institutes as marketing versus educational. And they've kind of enforced that a lot more, right? So like you don't really see the Jimmy JJ commercials anymore. You don't really see the Joe Namath commercials anymore. So I wouldn't expect that to become more of a thing because those rules aren't going away as far as I know. If anything, I think it even incentivizes people that might still be doing it less because there's way less people that can utilize it, right? But and also, you had the SEP change that took effect this year
Yeah.
on dual
Yeah.
business, which
That was a big one.
it severely limited who can actually be written year round.
Right.
Essentially, you can do it every month, but it has to be somebody that's fully dual eligible, QMB level, and they're already on a DSNP plan going to another DSNP plan. So like before, you could do it once a quarter, but it was anybody that was even just LIS eligible all the way up
Right.
to any level of Medicaid, right? So it was easy to flip. Now you can do it every month, but it's very few people out of that pool of people that can actually flip. It's very specific. So that market basically, man, I mean, I would say with this change and that SEP change, I would say 80% of the attractiveness of going after it is gone.
100%. 100% on your 80%, sir. I've always kind of felt that way. Again, I think I always viewed it as kind of a less desirable. Not that like it had its place, right? It's a necessary evil in the same way I believe MedSup is a necessary evil. Like it's its own niche, so like knowing how to writing a portion of your clients that fall into this category. Not saying like avoiding duals was ever what I preach, but I was never a fan of agents or agencies where they were like, we're building our business on duals only. Like we are going to solely, and I know there's some agencies out there who did that. And I'm assuming they're probably looking at pivoting at this point, because when that rule came out before, the one you just mentioned, that was one of the big ones, was the quarterly switching, not being able to switch their plans as much. What do you do if that's your whole game? Right, is you're rolling these people every month, right? Every month you're switching them into a different plan. So yeah, I think this is, maybe this will be a positive change. Maybe this will end up being a positive change for everybody.
Yeah, I think if you were a one-trick pony and focused on that, I just felt like that market brought with it an unprecedented level of unstability, which I wasn't that interested in. My philosophy was always, if we bump into them, we'll write them, we'll help those people, but we are by no means ever going to pursue that business. That's not like our marketing focus.
Right.
And I had a lot of people push back against me. They're like, well, I wrote 60 apps this month, all these snips, but like the other thing too was that, like, I would say it's pretty reasonable to say an average retention rate for Medicare business is like 85 to 90%. I know we've talked about this on the show a lot this year.
Yeah.
Our retention rate is very high, 97, 98% in the last year. We're above average for sure, especially for an agency of our size. But DSNP business, I would talk to people. I had a lot of people that paid me for consulting, or I'd talk to on the phone for whatever reason. And there was one guy I remember intimately that he was losing about 2/3 of every app he wrote.
Oh,
so he'd write 3 apps and 2 would walk out. Write 2 apps, 1 would walk out. There's just this ever evolving, unchanging, revolving door of clients coming in and out of his business. And, he couldn't figure out what the problem was. For me, it was obvious. For him, it wasn't. And I told him, I was like, you're focusing on an unstable clientele base. In my opinion, that's your problem. You're focusing on the neediest, most difficult to work with, hardest to understand.
Loves cookies.
Loves
all
cookies.
They want is cookies.
I think I've told the story on the pod before. I had somebody's change on me many years ago, DSNP plan. They took a plan that cut their dental, cut their grocery card, cut almost everything. And the only thing they got was their specific gym membership at the time covered curves, and the one I had her on wouldn't. That was the reason. So
would you say better retention's a good thing for everybody though? Like if this ends up becoming better, because I would agree. Like I think there's almost too much plan switching going on. We can all write plenty of business without constantly flipping people to different plans. I think there's so much opportunity. And so, if this is ultimately what ends up being the result, is that we see higher retention, the 70% loss that you were talking about is insane. But at the same time, with some of these call centers, I've seen their numbers. I actually, one time, I even had a really big call center send me some of their internal numbers by accident, which was really interesting. So I actually got to
Mm.
see like what their retention and sales conversion ratios look like. I won't say the name for the sake of privacy here, but this call center was losing probably after 12 months, it was probably around 50, 60%.
Oof.
Because again, it was my understanding was this call center was focused almost exclusively on the dual market. So, you know, you're barely going to make it through one AEP, right? Not to mention any switching that was going on before during the year. You go through one AEP, it's like putting your book of business through a buzzsaw. You're just like just chopping it in half.
Yeah.
So I'm all for that going away. Will it actually go away? I mean, there's some people in the comments here that I think they feel it's going to be more of the same with like the marketing and people still trying to switch people all the time. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
I can't
this could be a
say.
positive change. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody knows for sure. It's just my intuition kind of says that I'm sure you'll still get some of it. All that I'm saying is for those of you that were in this in 2020 and 2021, maybe even 2019, I don't see how you couldn't make the argument that it hasn't already reduced from huge amount.
Yeah,
Um,
I would agree.
and so that's kind of my gut feeling, right? Like I'm not saying it doesn't happen, and you'll always have those bad actors, that just will do anything they're not supposed to do, right? That will always be a thing. So I definitely think it will still happen. But do I think it's going to be at that level of 2019, 2020, 2021, where it's like blatant, it's public? There's Hall of Famer Joe Namath pimping himself out, reading
Pimping
a,
himself
a teleprompter, victimizing the seniors of America all over the country.
Yeah,
Doesn't even
yeah,
know what he's
yeah.
doing. Doesn't know. He's like, what am I reading? Okay. He's concussioned up, like
Yes.
I don't think
Uh,
I don't think we'll see that again anytime soon, is what I'm saying.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. That was probably the peak of that's what I would hope would be the peak of some of this marketing that was misleading or just, not genuine. The Part B give back, I know for a fact, like that's the first thing in my mind when that became a big thing and it was all over the Facebook ads that were being ran and every senior, everyone was talking to that AEP. It was like, what about my Part B give back? Am I going to get my Part B give back? Because it was like so pushed out there. Like this is should be about healthcare. This should be health focused. It shouldn't be about how much money they're going to get back or how much money they get to spend on groceries every month. Like
Right.
I understand why that's helpful to them. They're on a fixed income, but why shouldn't the focus be on the actual healthcare? Isn't that the actual point of this? Like
Yeah. Here's the
crazy.
other. I think that's, and I totally agree, right? I think it was
Yeah.
good intentioned benefit, but heavily abused.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I think the other part of this that we haven't talked about yet is for people that have a massive dual book. What does that mean for your existing clients in 2026? It means they're all used to these benefits, and a lot of them aren't going to be
Right.
able to use them all of a sudden, and they're going to be mad at you,
Row.
right?
That's good.
So think about that. Imagine you have 1,000 duals on the books, and 900 of them or 800 of them. Maybe it's not that many. Maybe more of them have chronic conditions than that. But whatever, even half of them, let's say, all of a sudden can't use their grocery card benefit anymore.
Do we have any idea what qualifies as a chronic condition in this
It's
context?
probably going to vary by carrier, I
Yeah.
would imagine. But if it's similar to the CSNP plans, a lot of times it's like diabetics and, you know,
You can't perform the ADLs.
yeah, probably things like that,
Yeah.
So, but think about that. A benefit is never missed unless they had it first. And so if they've had it and become used to it and almost become reliant on it, it's a no-win situation for you as an agent. That's a
100%.
nightmare. That's a nightmare. You know, we have duals in our book. 100%. We'll have to address this, and we'll have to really get down our communication as more information comes out as we come up to AEP. But I'm so thankful it's not like 50% of our book.
Yeah, that would be a
I'm
nightmare.
so thankful. And so, and I think the biggest thing in terms of your existing clients that's going to be the uphill battle is the education of it. Because the other thing I've always said about the dual business, not all, some of our best clients in the agency are dual people. It's not a blanket statement, but just in general, they're some of the hardest people to educate on changes. They just have the hardest time understanding it.
Yeah.
And so I would think if I could pick any kind of segment of business that you can have as an agent that you wouldn't want this to happen to and you wouldn't want to have to go through this with, it's that segment. You know what I mean? I'd rather our med sup clients have 40% rate increases, all of them. It'd be easier to deal with if we had, let's say we had half med sup clients and half dual clients, and I had to pick one problem to be happening. And so
the med sub premium increase for sure.
Yeah, I think that's more I think that's more easier.
Mitigatable.
Yeah, thanks.
Big words. There's a comment here on the stream I wanted to get to really fast. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour already. If food cards will require chronic, you'll see a lot of people roll out those plans once they find out they can't use those benefits. But a lot of the call centers will still push enrollments into those. Will be a great business for replacements during OEP. How do you feel about that? You think there'll be a better opportunity for replacements? Because maybe, like you're saying, these dual, you're taking away their benefits. They're used to getting money every month. They're not getting money. They're probably going to be upset. If someone's upset, if maybe they're more likely to move, right? They're mad at their existing agent, their existing, agency they're working with.
I think it's very possible. It'll be interesting to see kind of the call centers kind of approach to this, especially the ones that have focused so heavily on this in their marketing and everything like that. It's disruptive for sure to people that have built their business. It's like building a house of cards, and then one of the cards has been removed at the bottom and it's starting to kind of collapse, but I think it's very possible. I also wonder, like, if I was running a call center, and I'd love to get your perspective on this, if you feel this way or if you feel a different way, I would probably want to pivot away from that type of business, after something like this. I don't know, because I think what you'll have is if you're enrolling people basically with the intention of using those benefits as a carrot, knowing that the vast majority won't qualify for the benefits they're enrolling for, won't your fall off rate be even higher than it was?
Yep. So let me tell you something, because I can tell you what's going on right now in this space, because I have so many peers in the call center world, right? I mean, that's my space. So this has been the strategy for years now, is leveraging these additional benefits through marketing to try to get people to sign up or to switch them from one plan to another. This has literally been the playbook for years. Open enrollment, switching duals year round, all of it. So what's going to happen now with these benefits starting to go away or not being able to switch duals as often? Well, here's what I can tell you is a lot of them are pivoting away from doing any Medicare related business outside of AEP. That's honestly what I'm seeing. I'm seeing final expense being written a lot more now. I'm seeing ancillary plans getting written a lot more now, indemnity plans, dental, vision, hearing plans. Not saying that there's still not some call centers that are pursuing Medicare in different ways or MedSup, but it seems like the vibe of the dual market that, again, these call centers have been pursuing so aggressively for years, it's like we can't make it work anymore. We're gonna have to at least during part of the year, especially in the off season that we're in right now. We're just going to have to sell something else. So that's kind of what I've been seeing.
Yeah. It makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm not pretending to be call center expert or anything like that. I'm just thinking about myself. Like if I was at the head of the ship and I was steering it,
Right.
and I was like, the wind was blowing in my hair, and I was like, yo ho ho, which direction we go, mateys? I don't think I'd steer into the storm. I'd be like, storm approaching.
We're going through. We're not going around. We're going through.
We're running through. That's basically what he's called.
Full steam ahead. Sir, there's an iceberg.
Run it over.
We'll cut it in half with the ship.
It can't be tougher than me pride and joy. The ship, the Black Pearl. Sir, the Titanic went down. You will too. Arr, don't talk to me about no Titanic. Make this bugger walk the plank.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm done.
Let me ask you, if out of all the directions you could, let's assume you built a book, whether you're a call center or, because I've seen this with some individual agents and agency owners too, where they just heavily pursued this market.
Right.
So there's a lot of people out there right now that are in this in between where they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. You know, they're definitely not going to be writing year round. They might only be doing an AP, you know, pursuing this segment of the population model. What would be the best thing to pivot into during the off season, would you say? Because it seems like final expense is making a little bit of a resurgence right now. So is it because the final expense demographic overlaps that demo so well? You can cross-sell to your book. You know, you can cross-sell it both ways.
Yeah, I think that you just hit it right on the head. I think final expense is a big one, right? Because once, as you pointed out, once that product is sold, they're in your book, they're a client, and then you don't need permission to contact to talk to them about Medicare. So that opens up a lot of possibilities. So I think that's a very attractive market to be in. I definitely think the, Medicare supplement rewrites, birthday rule states, and probably T65 business. There's probably not too much else that can be really done.
You want to increase the loss ratio of these Medicare supplement carriers, is what you're telling me.
No, don't say me. You're contributing to the problem, mate.
Christian's responsible for the death of Medicare supplement. It was him. He did it. Everybody pointed at Christian.
I was, this is probably something we should talk about privately, but man, how amazing would it be if we put together some kind of promotion? I don't know what it would be. I don't know if it was like, it'd be like for MedSup contracting or MedSup leads or combination.
Yeah,
but like,
a recruiting commercial.
Make MedSup great again. Save MedSup.
Save MedSup.
I kind of want to put all my energy into that.
I'm sure you do. But if it was like World War II type of energy recruitment style, it's like yeah.
But I think the last thing that everybody wants is
here lies Plan F, G, N, and high deductible G and N.
Plan F, 1992, 2026. Plan G, 2010, 2026.
Are we pallbearers in this situation?
I'd be honored.
We're carrying the casket.
You get up to speak.
Oh man.
It's like they were great products. They helped lots of people. I love them well. But they couldn't overcome the 800% loss ratios by year 20.
Sign up with ESI today and help them sell.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anytime I get a chance to play that music, I just can't help myself.
Kills me. kills me. We're getting towards the top of the hour here, Mr. Brindle.
Yes.
Another big episode as far as
Big
important
topic.
content. Yeah, stuff that, again, like we mentioned earlier, there's so many agents, and it shocks us at the number of agents who really have no idea about changes that are going on, even changes from 5-6 months ago.
Yep.
So super important that if you are going to be trying to earn an income and a living, you're trying to build a book in this space, you need to stay up to date on this stuff. So that's the whole point really of the podcast, is we want to keep you guys informed and kind of have fun doing it. So, the past couple of days, I think we've had some really great episodes. So my final thoughts on today's episode specifically, to me, this whole thing just kind of screams diversification. If you can be competent in a couple of lines of insurance, whether that's, Medicare and final expense, Medicare and hospital indemnity, Medicare and dental vision hearing, pick a couple other lines of insurance and just be competent selling it, just because it's going to help you. It absolutely will. I mean, there's so many agencies I know that have done really well because they started to cross sell. So follow in their footsteps. When stuff like this happens, it creates less of a ripple effect inside your own agency. So those are my final thoughts on today's episode. Mr. Brindle, episode 115, final thoughts.
Yeah, I think as Glenn said, I want to reiterate that it is very important to kind of pay attention to things. And hopefully, for those of you that are trying to pay attention and be up to date of what's going on, hopefully we can be a great resource for you to help you do that. This is something that crossed my mind a couple of times talking about, but I just really genuinely thought, and I'll take some responsibility for not talking about it sooner, that I thought most people knew about it. I thought it would be old news, so I don't know. I just didn't think it was relevant. I'm always trying to think, what is the most relevant thing for us to be talking about for you guys, the audience?
Right.
But clearly I was wrong. This should have been talked about earlier, but better late than never. Right.
Yeah.
When this came out, we weren't even doing the show yet.
True.
In this format. So, I think this is something definitely to be aware of. I think if there's a lesson here, it's when people like me say, and I'm not the only one, I don't want to take all the credit for this, but when a lot of people like me have said for the last 5 to 7 years, this market is volatile, you shouldn't build your business on it.
Right.
I would pay attention to that. Our business is built on a very healthy demographic of people. I feel like we have decent people in our block. I'm not saying we don't, but it's not a huge percentage. We'd have never prioritized it because I've just never been a big believer in it. I think even before all this happened, I felt like the persistency was bad overall on this type of business. And, Glenn mentioned diversification. I think that's going to be name of the game going forward. And on the Medicare business you are writing, is there going to be anything better overall than just a regular Medicare Advantage plan with a regular, middle of the road, income family, higher income person, or a Medicare supplement person? Those are really sticky clients, in my opinion.
Agreed. Some of the best clients.
Yeah. And if you can get down cross-selling, dental vision hearing with it, cancer plans, hospital indemnity plans with your Medicare Advantage plans, they're covered better. Your retention is better. More products in the house. We've talked about it a lot. Final expense in there. All of that, I think, is a recipe for success. I mean, some of you guys are doing annuities with it. We don't do annuities, but you could throw that in there too, right? That's probably not a bad strategy to kind of be diversifying in. So yeah, that'd be my final thoughts on episode 115. Appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end.
Yes.
Hope
you guys are the real
it.
MVPs.
The real MVPs.
Oh, there was an NBA thing I was going to mention that I forgot. Did you see it really fast? I'm going to mention this. Did you see the Magic redesign their logo?
No.
Oh, the whole NBA world lost their minds yesterday at this logo redesign.
Let me look at it.
And here's the thing, controversial statement here at the end of the pod. I liked the redesign. I thought it was a great logo that they put out. I didn't love the last logo as much. I don't know if it's just the nostalgia that people have with old logos that they see a change, they just lash out and they hate the change. But
I don't like
actually
it as
like the
much,
logo.
if I'm being honest. Looking at it right now.
Oh, and there
I
it
kind of
is.
liked the old logo. I see the old logo. I
course.
think about like the Dwight Howard Magic that went to
Tracy
the finals.
McGrady.
And, yeah,
Tracy
T-Mac.
McGrady. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see what the new overall design schemes look like. I'll be interested to kind of see.
I'll buy you a jersey, okay? I'll buy you a jersey with the new logo.
You go with my Jokic jersey. By the way, first mention of the NBA in the last minute of the pod might be a record.
You're welcome. You're welcome, everybody.
We almost made it all the way. We almost did it. Again, guys, if you made it all the way to the end, whatever platform you might be listening to us on, certainly appreciate your support. Appreciate you really being interested and tuning in all the way. And make sure to like, comment, subscribe, leave reviews, whatever the platform you're listening to us on allows you to do. We appreciate the support and the engagement. Let us know what topics you'd like to see talked about on future episodes. If you have a way of reaching out, we'd love to hear about it. And we'll see you guys on the next episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast. I'm Christian Brindle, Glenn Shelton, signing off. Here's to your massive success. Thanks, everybody.
Happy selling.